Hey everyone, welcome to Gen X March the Spot. I am here. I'm Tracy. I am your host, and I am here with my wonderfully handsome co-host that joins. We join each other every Wednesday to talk about the news headlines of the week. I have Brian Trippett from the Front Porch Conservative. Brian, say hello and tell everybody where they can find you.
Hello, everybody. My name is Brian Trippett. I am known in social media as the Front Porch Conservative. You can find me on YouTube. My channel name is Chatting on the Porch. You can find me on Rumble at the Front Porch Conservative, and you can find me on Twitter at the Front Porch C1. I do commentary on politics, pop culture, whatever happens to hit my brain. I do videos, I do live streams. If you're not subscribed to my channel on both YouTube and Rumble, please do so. And by the way, give this wonderful lady right over here. See, I can never figure out where the arrow's pointing. Give this wonderful lady right over here a sub, because bless her heart, she's out there doing the Lord's work. You know, pop culture, movie reviews, horror movies, all kinds of good stuff. Give her a sub. You know, help us grow our little channels. We would greatly appreciate it.
Well, thank you so much. I really do appreciate that. We are live on YouTube and on X. And go ahead and come on in. I want to say hello to Gypsy and to Adam. Thank you for joining us this evening. And let's just jump into our first topic. There's so much out there, Brian. Like you said, it's drinking from a fire hose since Trump took office. We were just discussing that tomorrow will be 30 days, literally. Tomorrow at noon Eastern time will be 30 days exactly. So, yeah, just so much has happened.
And, absolutely, yeah.
And one of the main things that has happened that I am very, very happy about, with the exception of this and in the exception of the Hamas hostage exchange, which I'm very excited about. But I think one of the best things that have come out of this is finally putting to bed the Russia-Ukraine conflict, at least for now. And as we know, Trump has been talking to Putin. Their teams are meeting in Saudi Arabia right now to come up with a ceasefire/peace deal. And evidently, Zelensky got his feelings hurt.
Aww.
Because he's coming out whining to the European Union, whining to the G7, whining to anybody he can talk about that his feelings are not being taken into consideration with this peace deal. But from what I understand, that's not true. Trump did reach out to Zelensky. He was the second phone call he made after he spoke with Putin. And you brought up the thing that maybe you think Zelensky's a little hurt that he wasn't the first phone call and it's not being done on his terms.
Well, I think it's all right. For just a half a second, I'm going to give Zelensky benefit of the doubt. If this is just a unilateral conversation between the U.S. and the Russians, and basically they're going to draft the terms of how this ends, and Ukraine has no input, if that's his legitimate reason for getting all up in everybody's grill about it, okay. I can understand where he's coming from. That's about like, it would be like the Yalta Conference where, Roosevelt would sit down with Stalin, never invite Churchill, and then when it's all over with, Roosevelt goes to Churchill and says, okay, by the way, here's how we're going to divide up Europe. And Churchill's like, excuse me, why was Great Britain not included in the conversation? Mm-hmm. If that's his reason, okay, I get it. Now, the half a second's over. Okay, no, we're not giving Zelensky that much credit. This gets down to a couple different things, at least in my opinion. Okay, number one, he's got to keep the gravy train going. He's got to keep the money flowing into Ukraine to the benefit of himself, the oligarchs, and everybody else that they're bribing and stealing from. That's number one. Number two, the only way to do that is to keep the war going. So, no, I don't think this is anything other than Zelensky trying to keep the gravy train happening. And, I mean, you and I were talking about this backstage. Ukraine is not going to go back to the borders that it had prior to 2022. Ain't happening. I mean, if I were the Russians and Zelensky threw that up as a starter, I'd just walk away from the table and go, you mean to tell me that my country has spilled this much blood, spent this much money, and this much time, and you just expect us to go back to the way everything was and we get nothing out of this territorially? Screw you. I wouldn't blame Putin one bit if he walked off from the table. Mm-hmm. If that's what Zelensky's going to try to do. And that is exactly what Zelensky's trying to get done. It's like, oh, okay, everything's back to normal now. No, it's not.
The way I look at it on Zelensky, he has two choices. He can either come to the table and negotiate a peace and know that Russia is going to take the territory they have already captured by right of conquest, that the majority of those people are ethnic Russian and speak Russian and are probably much happier being citizens of Russia than they are of Ukraine, with the understanding that any of them that want to remain Ukrainian citizens can move westward and stay in Ukraine. He's going to understand that he cannot join NATO right now, and that maybe between the United States and the European Union, we might be able to help him rebuild his country. Might be able to help him rebuild his country.
Yeah.
The other choice is that he pushes Putin away from the table. Putin says, okay, I'm just going to finish it. And the United States withdraws most of their aid, with the exception of maybe some humanitarian. And oops, all of Ukraine is ceded into Russia. Those are going to be the choices.
And none of them from Zelensky's standpoint are real good. I mean, as I understand the terms that have come out of, and I tell you what, watching this meeting take place in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, between our Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, and the Russian Foreign Minister, Lavrov, harkened me back to old times, at least in my recollections, when I can remember the days of James Baker sitting down with Edward Shevardnadze in the days of the old Soviet Union, before any summits took place, or George Shultz. And I'm dating myself with some of these names. I know that, but that's where my memory goes. In that, before Reagan ever sat down with Gorbachev, or Herbert Walker Bush ever sat down with Gorbachev, you had the respective secretaries of state and foreign ministers saying, okay, our bosses want to get in the room. Here's where my boss is at. Okay, well, here's where my boss is at. What do you want to do here? And watching Rubio deal with Lavrov, which, by the way, the Russian foreign minister, Lavrov, is probably one of the most accomplished diplomats in all of Europe. Doesn't matter, you're talking, so you're talking old Russia, or you're talking any part of Western Europe or anywhere in between. This guy's been around the block for like 20, 25 years. He knows everybody. He knows all the players, and he's very good at what he does. And not that I'm trying to grade Rubio here, but for my part, I thought he represented himself and the country very well. And out of that meeting came basically the terms that the Russians are starting the conversation with. There must be free elections in Ukraine. That one to me is critical, because right now, everybody's like, oh, we're going to defend democracy. We got to stick up for Ukraine. Yeah, and Ukraine's president is almost a year over his expiration date of his term. Keep in mind, Zelensky was elected to a 5-year term in 2019. His term expired May of last year, but he declared martial law in 2022, outlawed all the political parties, outlawed certain freedoms of the press, but yet we're defending democracy by sticking up for a guy who's been in office a year longer than he should have. So, number one, there had to be elections. Number two, Ukraine has to give up any efforts whatsoever to try to get into NATO. You can try to get into the European Union if you want to, but not NATO. Okay.
Because we made a promise all the way back, not an inch further.
Yeah, that's right. And frankly, that to me, if this goes down and Ukraine is denied access into NATO, I'm not going to say it's the end of the current structure of how things go in Western Europe, but it's going to deal a major blow to France, to England, and to Germany, who for the past 10, 15 years have been pushing, we got to get Ukraine into NATO. We got to get Ukraine into NATO. We got to get Ukraine. No. And Trump's like, nope. We ain't doing that. I mean, there were some other terms, but those are the big ones. And frankly, if those get negotiated and that's how it goes down, that to me makes a whole lot of sense. And it puts, like I said, leaders in Western Europe into a very bad trap. Mm-hmm. You say you want to defend democracy, but you're not letting the people of Ukraine have a say in how this war ought to end. They don't get to vote on their president. So, I mean, which is it, guys? Do you want democracy or not?
I mean, I can't stand up and say that Russia is the paragon of democracy. We all know it's a dictatorship, an oligarchy.
Exactly.
But the fact they're saying that if you're truly wanting to defend democracy, we need free and fair elections in Ukraine right now.
Yep.
We want to keep the territory we've already won by right of conquest. And no NATO, and we have some sort of buffer between us and Ukraine, probably some sort of demilitarized zone.
Yep.
Guarded probably, which ought to be by Russian troops on one side and Ukrainian troops on the other side. The EU should not be involved. NATO should not be involved. The United States should not be involved.
Well, and we were talking about this backstage. To me, this is one of the fascinating things about what's going on. Trump's cut Western Europe out of the negotiations altogether. He's cut NATO out of this whole thing. I mean,
well, NATO's been part of the problem in this. Like you said, it has been part of the problem.
Yeah,
Russia and Ukraine had two peace deals on the table.
Yeah,
and both times it was Great Britain one time, and another EU power, and I think just the EU collectively the second time that said you can't take that deal. We'll back you up if you go to war with them. Literally.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. And, and the Russians never, throughout this whole thing, and frankly, for 30 years, have not been asking for much. They said, look, just don't let NATO get up on our border. And if you go to the north, you've got Finland, you've got Denmark. You go to the south, you got all those countries. You got the right in the middle. The only thing standing between NATO on the front door of Russia are two nations, Belarus and Ukraine. That's it. Everything else is right up on the Russian border. And,
Gypsy, absolutely. Zelensky he is a puppet. He's a puppet of NATO. He's a puppet of the European Union. And that would include Joe Biden as part of that before Joe Biden got out. But now this puppet master is cutting their strings. And, he is. He's being and the obvious reaction of the other of the Western European leaders after J.D. Vance gave his speech recently. Mm-hmm. The German emergency services leader bawling on stage.
Oh God!
It's, as Dave Ramsey would say, it's the wussification of the world.
Yep. No,
these
absolutely.
Are all weak men that have created bad times.
Oh, completely. Absolutely. I mean, and Trump has cut the Western Europeans out of the discussions. He's cut NATO out of the discussions. He's cut even the Ukrainians out of the discussions because, and I think Gypsy's absolutely right. Zelensky's not calling the shots in Ukraine. Everybody else is calling it, but he has nothing to do with it. But the fact that the Russians are sitting down directly with the Americans and saying, okay, look, we want this over with. We know you want this over with. And the Russians are like, here's where we're at. What do you want to do here? Mm-hmm. To me, this is just amazing. And the Europeans crying about, oh, Trump, get over it, guys. You made this mess. And once again, the United States and for full disclosure, we are just as big a part of making this mess as anybody else because of the dipstick, who was in the White House, who had his strings being pulled by Andrew Sullivan and Anthony Blinken. Mm-hmm. We are as much a part of this mess as anybody else. Now, Donald Trump's coming along going, look, we're going to clean this up and we're going to figure out how to do it. So we were talking about backstage. Everything has changed so much in 30 days. I mean, and I don't mean just short-term stuff. I mean long-term things that we have all been known to be, how the world operates. Those rules are getting wadded up, thrown out the window now. Doesn't matter if it's domestic policy, international policy, doesn't matter what it is. Everything is absolutely just getting changed up on its end. And how this comes to an end, I mean, I think it's going to be a little while longer before we get there. But if Trump gets this thing done by, let's say, the
June.
fall of this year, or even the fall of this year, if he gets it done anywhere in the next 6 months, that's going to be amazing. That's going to be absolutely amazing.
Are we on an official ceasefire over there? I know there was a few more little exchanges over there right after it was announced, but I think they've been on kind of a ceasefire since the meetings started taking place.
I think so. I also think it's a thing where Ukraine's ability to keep waging war with the Russians has been so degraded over the past 6 months, especially, that the generals and the soldiers out in the field are probably happy to stop firing at the Russians. I mean, I've heard reports of whole, and again, take it for what it's worth, whole groups just surrendering to the Russians. They're just like, we're done here. I mean,
is it really that bad? I mean, because, we're told here by mainstream media that Russia's the one in bad shape. And I'm not saying Russia's not. Russia's took a hammer in two, and I'm sure we've set Russia's military back probably a good half century.
It depends upon who you're listening to on this. And again, I will freely admit my sources are, somewhat deliberately closed off. But when it comes to stuff coming out of the Ukraine war, I recommend Colonel Douglas Macgregor to anybody. I recommend the boys from the Duran, Alex Cristofaro and Alexander Macoris. I recommend the boys from the Gaggle, Peter Lavelle and George Samueli. I mean, especially the reports coming from the Duran that the Russians are almost in a position where the only thing separating them from Kiev is a river. That's about how bad it is. So, I mean, we'll see what happens, but I'm going to be very fascinated, not just to hear what the final terms are, how quickly Zelensky agrees or does not agree, because I'm like you, him getting into a whizzing contest with Donald Trump right now is not the smartest thing he could ever do. I mean, it's just dumb. It makes no sense.
Well, let me ask you this, Brian.
Okay.
What's the end game? What was the intended end game for all of this? What was Russia's end game, and what was the European Union's or NATO's end game with this? What were the two counterpoints?
I'll just give you my opinion, and how history reveals what actually happened is yet to be determined. I think from Western Europe and NATO is just a continued aggression against Russia,
trying to set them back.
To set them back. Well, not just militarily. Ever since the end of the Cold War, there have been two schools of thought about how you should deal with the Russians. One of them I thought made sense in that, look, you're talking about the second biggest nuclear arsenal in the world. I'm not saying treat them with kid gloves, but they are a very old and very proud nation and an old and very proud people. You treat them as an equal, and you bring them into not necessarily the westernization of Russia, but you treat them like a respected foe. Okay? You had bad leadership. You've got good people now. Let's see if we can, make a better world together. The other school of thought is what I think has been on full display really for the past 10 or 15 years. I mean, it's been going on longer than that. And that is, we kicked your ass. You are subservient to us. We, the United States, are the world's only superpower, and you're going to be treated like a defeated vassal. And I think in the end, that's what Western Europe was trying to do, was just grind the Russians down into nothing for the sake of the supremacy of Western Europe.
And that had to do with us waging a proxy war against Russia through Ukraine.
Yeah.
And also cutting them off from SWIFT and from all the payment systems and trying to cripple their economy.
Yeah. Which was the dumbest thing we ever did. Because, I mean, as many people pointed out very early on, the Russian economy is built differently than the U.S.'s economy. The U.S. economy is basically a fiat economy.
Right.
Our money is only worth something because we declare it to be so. The Russian ruble is backed up by commodities, agricultural product in part, but also gold. Okay. Yeah, those sanctions, when we put them on, hurt Russia for maybe 3 or 4 months. And after that, their economy would bounce right back, because their economy, from a manufacturing standpoint and from an economic base, is so broad. Okay, you hit us with one thing, we can survive it for a while. We'll be fine.
Well, my wife games a lot, and she has friends in Russia that she games with. I mean, she has friends all over the world that she games with, and she talked to some of her Russian friends back when the sanctions first took place. And most of them were pretty upset. They're like, why can't I get Netflix? Because Putin and Zelensky can't get along. Why can't I get Hulu? And now she talks to them. They pretty much all got VPNs and whatever, and they're back to watching Netflix and Hulu, and they don't seem to be suffering anymore.
Well, and the other thing, and this goes back to that very famous interview that Tucker Carlson did with Vladimir Putin. A lot of people said, well, Putin's just trying to stir the drink with the comment he made. But the comment I thought was very, very insightful. He's like, I don't understand why you guys are weaponizing the United States dollar. He said, I do not understand why you're risking the world's reserve currency to just basically, wage war with us. He's like, in the end, you're going to do more damage to yourself. People say, oh, this is good. And we have.
What that spiraled off is to all these other countries that were using us as the reserve currency, and all of those that were purchasing oil in U.S. dollars that gave our money a boost now looked at our ability to totally disable their economy, and they're like, oh no, we've got to have some other reserve currency to keep it safe from what the United States might do, and that's why you had the rise of BRICS. That's why you had Saudi Arabia and the other OPEC nations say that they will deal in each country's individual currency. It might take them a while, but they will deal. And they won't necessarily just deal in their currency or the United States currency. It did a lot of damage to the dollar.
Oh, I know. And Trump is still trying to fix that. I mean,
it's going to take a while. We'll fix it. It'll take a long time. The United States dollar is still the strongest currency in the world, and people know that.
Oh, yeah.
But it made us look like a tyrant in a way.
Well, a tyrant, but foolish.
Yeah.
I mean, to finish answering your question, what was it the aim from the Russian side? I think two things. One is the continuing attempt to reestablish something that they were promised. They were promised that NATO would never move further east than where it was back in 1991. And when finally Europe kept trying to make Ukraine a member of NATO, they're like, that's it. That's the last straw. The other issue is in the eastern part of Ukraine, there are native Russian-speaking people who have never wanted to be part of the current Ukraine as constituted. They want to be part of Russia. They have made that abundantly clear in elections that they voted on. They don't want to be part of Ukraine. They want to be part of Russia.
Let them go.
Let them go. Let them go. If voluntarily on their own, by their own vote in a democratic election, they simply want to move away, let them do it.
And I don't think Zelensky or the West necessarily wanted to keep those people. I think what they wanted to do was keep the land there that had the resources in it.
Yeah.
They didn't care about the people. If the people wanted to cross over the border and join Russia, they could have. But those people didn't want to leave their homes and their towns and everything else that they had built.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And I just, the whole Ukraine saga, and I don't mean just the war, because this has been going on really since 2014 with the Maidan coup.
Mhm.
This whole thing, the Maidan coup, the Minsk Accords, etc., this is going to go down in world history as one of the dumbest experiments that the West ever engaged in to try to establish dominance. It's going to be remembered as one of the biggest, stupidest efforts in world history at one party trying to gain dominance over another and just shoot themselves in the foot doing it.
If you look at the history of the Russian-Ukraine issue, it's just like the history of Israel and Palestine in the Gaza Strip.
Mm-hmm.
It goes back a long time with a lot of different owners of that land. It's been Russian. It's not been Russian. It's been German. I believe it's been Czechoslovakian. It's been all kinds of stuff, or Yugoslavian. I don't think it was ever Czechoslovakian, but Yugoslavian.
Yeah.
It's been everything. And so it's the Ukrainians, for the most part, are Slavic. Most Slavics can claim Russian heritage. So it's just because you had the Russian. Now I'm going back to the Russian Empire before Soviet, before they did their failed communist experiment. When you still had the czars and czarinas in charge.
Mm-hmm.
The Russian Empire was vast and it was huge, and it went far west right up to Germany, and it went to the Far East almost as far as China. And they own large swaths of country. And so you've got a lot of different people with hands in those pots.
Yep.
And you can't look at that and say they're Russian or they're Ukrainian, because a little bit of both of it's true.
Absolutely. Yeah. I just it boggles the mind because it never had to be like this. I mean, Trump uses the phrase, this war never would have taken place. And in one sense, he's right. But even remove Trump from the equation, remove Trump Biden from the equation. This never had to get to where it is. This never did. I mean, the West, like I said, has been pushing and pushing and pushing for years. You know. Oh no! I agree with that. The money laundering that's gone on is absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah,
Gypsy.
there's criminal elements in
there's that completely criminal elements in this. But my point is, the thing that makes me sad, I guess, the most, it never had to get to this. You know, it didn't have to be this way.
What should have happened was the EU keep their note, and Boris Johnson in the UK keep their nose out of the peace negotiations that were already going on when Zelensky probably was trying to make his own decisions.
Yeah. Well, but the other part of this,
step out of the way and just let them make their own peace.
Yeah, but the other part of this, and it's not necessarily original to me, but people have been pointing this out. You have an entire economy in Europe that wants to see perpetual war. They want perpetual conflict. Why? Their economies are built on it. They've got to keep the conflict going. If peace breaks out, what the hell are they going to do? I mean, it's like us pulling out of NATO, you know, which people are now actually getting into some serious conversations about. Or but it's getting out there in the discussions. Like, well, why do we need to stay a part of NATO? We pull out of NATO. You want to prove to the world how completely emasculated the nation states of Western Europe are? Let them have to defend themselves without NATO, which really is American troops. Let's be honest about it. We pull our troops out of NATO. We pull our armaments out of NATO. We pull all of our weaponry out of NATO, and we move it somewhere else, like back on American shores, for example. We do all of that. Or Greenland. We do all of that. You're going to find out real fast how absolutely withered away the British military is. Same thing with the French. Same thing with the Germans. Don't really even have a military to speak of. But you get my point. Everybody's going to realize we have been basically subsidizing Europe economically and militarily for the past 70 years since post-World War II. You know, they'll never be able to survive on their own for a while. And they better hope the Russians don't ever decide to move east, because frankly, they don't have the wherewithal to stand up to them if they did.
Yeah.
You know,
if they mess around and piss all over this and push Putin away from the table, best thing Trump can do is just say, we're pulling out of NATO. We're pulling all of our resources out of this. And wait, because World War III, unfortunately, probably will break out, and Russia will steamroll all of Europe.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, and Gypsy, I saw that.
And do you know what we should do? At that point, we should just take Greenland. We should just, Trump should just call Putin and say, look, I'm not going to stop you, but I want a buffer, so I'm taking Greenland.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, and Herr Starmer, threatening to send the British military into Ukraine. Oh, please go ahead, Kears. Go ahead and do it. You got enough problems in your country right now, big boy. Go ahead and demonstrate. Go and demonstrate to Europe how completely ineffective the British military is.
I mean, would that be am I terrible for saying that that's probably what would happen?
No, I don't think I think you're being realistic about it. Because
Trump would want a buffer between us and Russia.
Yeah.
And he would say, I'm taking Greenland.
Which in part is what is driving all this. Trump realizes the Chinese are trying to get into Greenland. Trump realizes the Russians are trying to get into Greenland. Okay, let's better us to get ahead of everybody else than to wind up coming in third place.
Exactly.
So yeah,
and I agree. The way Western Europe is treating their citizens right now, I don't even consider them the West anymore.
Oh, yeah. When you have, I mean, and I don't know how many people saw that 60 Minutes interview when they were saying, in Germany, could you be arrested for a meme? Oh, yeah, we could. Could you be arrested for saying something that someone disagrees with? Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I'm sitting here going, hold on now. And that's what, to me, makes J.D. Vance's speech at the Munich Security Conference even more powerful. And he's rightly pointing out, it's like, look, we're supposed to be allies. Well, being an ally means there are certain things at minimum we agree on. When you have a nation, or nations in this case, that do not believe in the concepts of freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, the free expression of ideas, and yet you're wanting to ally with us, that's a little bit of a problem, because we like free speech, we like freedom of assembly, we like freedom of the press, we like freedom of religion. You guys don't. What is there to be an ally about?
Right. Absolutely. And if you think about it, they're letting non-Western culture become the predominant culture in most of those Western. Islam is taking over. And Islam is the most anti-Western thing you can possibly be.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And they're letting it take over. And that's sad.
Oh, yeah.
And I think Putin sees that. I think Putin sees what's going on, and he knows how to lock down his own border. If you look at Russia, I'm not talking about the Soviet Union, because the Soviet Union had a lot of Muslim countries, states. But by and large, Russia is kind of a mid-ground between East and West.
Yep.
It's not fully Eastern.
Yeah.
It's not fully Western, but I think it's more Western than Eastern.
Yep.
It's still a Catholic country, even though it's Orthodox. It's still a Catholic country.
Yeah.
They still have a whole lot of Western influence there. Mm-hmm. And I think Putin sees what a danger Islam is.
Yeah.
And that may be partly what's motivating him.
Yeah. The great divide in the really from the beginning of the Soviet Revolution in the early 1917s until it finally ended was the fact that you had Western Christianity versus atheism. Mm-hmm. The Soviet Union goes away. Now you have you have the great divide between, supposedly westernized Christian nations against an Islamic caliphate. Mm-hmm. And these Western nations are importing their own demise, because as opposed to saying, for example, we are the German culture. Here is our heritage. Here are our beliefs. Here is what we stand for. If you want to come to our nation and be a part of that, that's fine, but you will assimilate to that culture. They're shutting off their own culture and saying, "Oh no, please let us have what you are. Change, we will change to make you happy." No, that ought to be the other way around. If you're going to, I mean, for example, when you come to the United States, there was a period of time you were expected to learn English. You were expected to be loyal to the United States. We were the great melting pot.
You couldn't you couldn't do a female circumcision. You couldn't do
right?
child sacrifice. You couldn't do a whole lot of religious practices animal sacrifice. A lot of religious practices that may have been okay in your country.
Yep.
Can't do that here.
No, yeah, but Western Europe, be it Germany, be it the French, be it the British, they're absolutely sacrificing centuries of culture, centuries of tradition, centuries of Western, Judeo-Christian ideas on the altar of, we don't want to offend our Muslim brothers. Excuse me? They're coming to your nation. If they want to remain, practitioners of the Islamic religion, fine, that's their business. But as far as the culture and the practices and the norms of your nation, they should be, assimilating to you, not the other way around.
How many European monarchs, Catholic popes, soldiers, died, sacrificed during the Crusades to keep Islam out of Christendom?
Yeah.
And now you've just opened the floodgates for them. You spit on thousands of years of history.
The country of Spain took the better part of, I want to say, a couple of centuries pushing back, because there was a point where Spain was almost gone.
Yeah, the Moors moved in and taken over.
Yeah, most of Spain. And it finally took them the better part of a couple of centuries to finally push the Moors out and back across the Mediterranean. But no one understands. You let it, and again, I'm not trying to speak evil of anybody who is of Arab descent. That's not the point here. I'm not talking about a lot of people. I'm talking about just a mindset that says we're coming to take over. And that's exactly what they're going to do. And
nowhere in Western Europe should be talking about Sharia law. And there are local politicians in European cities talking about Sharia law in certain neighborhoods. And no, that should never be.
No, I agree. I agree completely.
I would say the same thing if they wanted to impose Sharia law based on Catholicism or Anglicanism or any other Protestant religion. I would say the same thing. No, you don't do that.
Yeah. But keep in mind, we're coming out of a tradition of Americanism that says, okay, you want to be a Roman Catholic? Be a Roman Catholic. You want to be a Protestant? Be a Protestant. You want to be Jewish? Be Jewish. You want to practice the religion of Islam? Practice the religion of Islam. But no one religion is going to have, more power over another, and you're not going to be able to create a theocracy through law.
No.
Now, your laws can be based on certain principles of a religion, but we're not going to declare a particular, religion to be the supreme law of the land. You don't get that here.
Exactly.
You got to practice tolerance. And
as Lindsay says, the other way, during communist revolutions, they push atheism to the extent because they don't because a belief in God interferes with your belief that government is the all-in-one. So
Absolutely.
But we've got, these people, Islam is anti-Western. I don't care what you say. You can be a Muslim and move to the West and assimilate and practice a watered down version of Islam and be okay. But if you're trying to actually follow Sharia law, caliphate, that sort of thing, teachings of a caliphate, you cannot be Western. I'm sorry. That may sound prejudiced, but that's just the way I feel. Islam is, in its most pure form, is the most anti-Western thing in existence. And we need to keep it out.
Yeah. A little of that goes a long way. And when it goes a long way, you're long gone. So
Islam has not been through the Renaissance that Judaism and Christianity have been through. We have been through centuries of Renaissance where liberal thought got interwoven with strict religious theocratic views, and we came to a middle ground.
Yeah.
Islam has not yet done that.
Mm-mm.
And until they
And
do
it won't.
that, and it probably won't, but if they ever do, they might be fit for Western consumption, but not now.
Oh, exactly. Exactly. And, you know, it took it took a lot of, I like the way you put it, interweaving of, you know, liberal thought, classical liberal thought.
Yeah, classical liberal, not crazy leftyism.
Yeah, classical liberal thought and Judeo-Christian principle, you know, and a lot of political philosophy to come up with the system that we've got here in the United States. And by and large, it's worked. Now, it's in need of some serious renovation, which we're in the process of doing right now. But, you know, it served us well for over almost 2.5 centuries.
And I listened to Dr. Stephen Turley today. I don't know if you ever listened to him. But
I love Steve Turley.
He was talking about how he sees what's going on, you know, that Islam is a threat. Mm-hmm. And we need to get them out. But he says, have you noticed what's going on in a lot of countries is a big return. We've swung the pendulum. We've gone as far out into the crazy woke leftyism as we can possibly go toward globalism that we can go without actually getting to a new world order. Mm-hmm. And I hate even using that term, but you know what I mean.
Yep.
And now we're starting to swing back. He goes, United States is having sort of a Judeo-Christian, at least culturally, revival. He says in China, I'm hearing reports that Confucianism is making a comeback. That you're starting to see a Greek Orthodox renaissance in Russia. So he says a lot of people are realizing that we need to hold on to our borders. Each country has a right to its agency. It has a right to its tradition, and that includes its religion.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. It's just amazing. And just amazing to think about. And that's why, you know, be very careful about, you know, whole cities and towns, you know, where, I mean, and Dearborn, Michigan makes me, and Gypsy, this is nothing against you, darling.
And Hamtramck, yeah, all those places.
Yeah. That makes me a little bit nervous. It's like, ooh, you know, because a little of that goes a long way.
Yep.
Yeah. Very, very true.
And I'm not please all my Arab brothers and sisters out there, I'm not talking about you. I'm not talking about Western-minded Arab people of Arab descent. Not talking about that. I'm talking about fundamentalist Islam. That's what I'm talking about. Yep. And that's what Western Europe is allowing to take over.
Yeah. To the point that Great Britain, France, Germany, they're unrecognizable anymore. And what cracked me up, again, going back to Vance's speech, after he gets through, you know, smacking the Europeans down, they're all, I mean, just like, you know, they're crying about it. I can't believe someone would say this to us. You're proving the point. You guys don't believe in free speech anymore. You don't share the same values that we do anymore.
Yeah.
And you just proved it by the way you reacted to the speech.
Yeah.
If you could have done it, you never would have let J.D. Vance. Put it this way. If they had veto power over what the vice president of the United States could say, number one, J.D. Vance would never have given the speech. But number two, that would have proven the point completely. You're censoring what someone says because you don't like it. As opposed to saying, I don't agree with you, but I respect your right to say it. I mean, you know, what was Voltaire's great line? You know, it's been attributed to him. You know, I will disagree with you to my death, but I will fight to my death for the right to you to say what you're saying, or something along those lines. Mm-hmm. I know I'm not quoting it exactly, but that's the general idea. I do not agree with you whatsoever, but I will defend your right to the death to let you be able to say it. Mm-hmm. You know, and Western Europe, when you can get arrested for a meme or I don't know, Charlie Hebdo, the great Charlie Hebdo controversy, a cartoon sets everybody off and they try to arrest the guy who wrote it. Mm-hmm. It's nuts. This is nuts. You do not share our values anymore.
No.
You know, which sort of begs the question: should we really keep these alliances in place that have been in place since the end of the Second World War?
Sounds like the United States has gone over here and Europe went over there.
Yeah.
And who do we actually come closer to? Looks like we come a lot closer to meeting in the middle with our Latin American neighbors.
Yep.
That still hold a whole lot of Western values.
Yep.
Because of a lot of different things, mostly their religion.
Yeah.
They're Christian. Most of them are Christian.
Yeah. But Europe anymore is the light that would have been Western Europe is almost put out. Now, I hate to say that. I'm not trying to be melodramatic about it, but it's true.
Because you and I came from Western Europe. Our ancestors came from Western Europe. I mean,
But
I think we're closer in values to Central South America and Mexico in a lot of ways.
Yeah, if we can just get the cartels under control.
I got to get the cartels out of Mexico, but the Mexican people in general,
No, absolutely. I mean, which is why I've always said, I don't begrudge someone trying to come to the United States to better themselves economically, thinking particularly coming across the Mexican border. I don't begrudge them for that. Mm-hmm. What I begrudge them for is you're violating our laws doing it. So there is that.
Oh, yeah, Lindsay, I'm not saying that South America is perfect, but we do have a lot in common with, say, our neighbors in Argentina and Costa Rica, El Salvador, Brazil, under its previous administration. We do have a lot in common with those people, cultural.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. Yep. No, and Lana, I see what you're saying. Douglas Murray warned everyone a decade ago they wouldn't listen. And absolutely true. Absolutely true. But it's just, like I said, the pastor. Go ahead.
There have been Islamic, I'm not sure what you call Islamic clergymen, but there was a Islamic clergyman that warned the West. I want to say he was from United Arab Emirates or maybe Saudi Arabia, but he warned the West to keep Islam out of their borders.
Yep.
He warned them, and he's Muslim himself.
Yeah. There are some imams that have been very courageous trying to warn the West and say, hey, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this, because if you do, you're going to regret it. Mm-hmm. And, we didn't listen. And now it's almost taken down some of the great nations of Western Europe.
Exactly.
So we'll see. We will see. So.
All right. Well, with that being said, do you want to do a little ad break and then switch over to something fun like superhero movies and television?
I love that idea. So let's do a commercial. You want to start off? You want me to start it?
You start it off.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, if you have happened upon this channel and you're listening to these two fabulous looking individuals give their opinion about what is going on in the world, or more to the point, what should be going on in the world, you have found your way to the Wednesday night newsroom. My name is Brian Trippett, and I am known in social media as the Front Porch Conservative. This lady right over here is Tracy Barkley from Gen X Marks the Spot. We both have channels on YouTube. You can find mine at Chatting on the Porch. You can find hers under the name Gen X Marks the Spot. You can also find me on Rumble. You can also find both of us on Twitter. So please subscribe to our channels. Spread the good word. Give us a thumbs up. Leave a comment in chat. And let me tell you, we've both been doing videos lately, and boy, have we been getting a lot of chatter. Let me tell you now. Loving every minute of it.
If you have not seen Brian's latest video on the Tom Hanks SNL controversy, you should go over and check that out. It is quite a barn burner, in my opinion.
And the thing is, I thought I was being fairly tame with that one, but apparently everybody came out of the woodwork and was like, yeah. I mean, people are like, love what you did with your mom's basement. I got those kind of comments. It's like, hey, okay.
I own this house and I am not in a basement.
Exactly. Daggone it. Oh yeah. I mean, I had some people getting in touch with their inner child, and boy, they were demonstrating it. But yes, check out our videos, check out our live streams, leave a thumbs up, subscribe if you can, and help us take our going little concerns and make them going big concerns. And with that, we will switch off to the top 10. And this is
Exactly.
going to be a fun one tonight.
Yeah. Just in case, it snowed here, for those of you knowing, then that is big news in Tennessee. But with that, being that I live in kind of a big old drafty farmhouse, mice is something that we battle every winter because they tend to want to move in where it's warm. We have, I think it's the same family, comes different generations of the same family that come back every winter, and they move into our garage and into the attic. And then, so we've got a couple now. My cat has dealt with a couple of them. And I know there's at least one more. So if you see me scream, that's what it is. Because my rodents is something I'm absolutely terrified of. So if you see me doing like this,
yeah, we'll know what's going on. We will offer up prayer and supplication on your behalf, my dear. So, all right, let's do it.
All right. Well, top 10 superhero medium. We're going to do just movies, and that I said, no, can we add TV shows? So we're going to do top 10 superhero movies / TV shows, whatever have you. I technically have 11 because there was an honorable mention that I just couldn't leave off the list no matter what. I tried to figure out a way to leave it off, but I just couldn't. So we're just going to do a countdown of our favorite 10 or so superhero entertainment functions. Do you want to start, or do you want me to?
I'll start it.
Go ahead.
For me at number 10, and part of the reason that I picked this movie is when it comes to a superhero film or television show, if it does the origin story very well, then it makes my list. And for number 10, I go with Aquaman. Jason Momoa, Amber Heard before she lost her mind. Nicole,
before she lost her shit.
Or and shit in someone's bed, but or shit in her own career, as the case may be. Amber Heard, Nicole Kidman. I can see his face, and I cannot think of his name. He played the other brother, Orm.
Oh God,
that man has been in everything too.
I know. What's his name? See, if you hadn't have asked me, I could have told you. Let me look it up. Aquaman. Patrick Wilson.
Thank you, Patrick Wilson. And Willem Dafoe. Willem Dafoe is in that movie. For me, I love the way they did this. I love the origin story. I love the way that they worked in Nicole Kidman's character as the Queen Mother, as it were. I mean, now granted, does Jason Momoa look like Aquaman from the comic books? No. I mean, let's be honest about it. Ladies, y'all got Jason Momoa for the muscles and the long hair and the looks and the tattoos. Come on now.
Yeah. So in the comic book, he's a little blonde California surfer dude.
Yeah, exactly. But laying that criticism aside, okay, yes, Lana, we get it. You think that Jason Momoa looks better. I understand. But laying that aside, the origin story is put together very well. The story of the Seven Kingdoms that make up classic Atlantis, I thought was done very well. I thought it was just a well put together film. And everybody has their criticisms of DC's movie division, DC Comics, I should say. And I get it. I understand why. But, this is one of those they got absolutely right. They really nailed this one well. And, and they set up a different, set up Aquaman 2, obviously. But it's very well done. The special effects were great. And it's just a lot of that was just, and Momoa was great in the role, I thought.
Yeah.
He really was. But, just because he's really the anti-hero. He doesn't want to be, this ruler of Atlantis. He doesn't want to be all these things, but winds up being that if for no other reason than to save the world he grew up in, which was not the ocean. So
Correct.
To me, it makes a very good film. So, if you haven't watched it, I recommend it to you. So with
And
that, I'll turn it over to you.
I'm responding to Gypsy about him being an a-hole. We don't want him for his conversation, Gypsy.
Yeah.
I love you, Gypsy. For me, number 10 is Doctor Strange from 2016.
Okay.
Love it. I never Doctor Strange was not a comic book I really enjoyed as a kid, but I love Benedict Cumberbatch, and I love I do like the Marvel Extended Universe, most of it.
Yeah.
And just the special effects. I mean, yes, it was CGI, but it wasn't too CGI. And it was the right mix of that Marvel humor with seriousness, and the way they executed the different dimensions and the magic and integrated him. And he was kind of like Aquaman in a way. Doctor Strange did not set out to be a hero. It was something that was just kind of dropped on him. And he became a hero. He had a true hero's arc if you go through all of the Marvel films that he's in. And anyway, so I just really enjoy it. The special effects, the story, the humor. It's just all around a good, entertaining watch. Didn't really like the most recent Doctor Strange, but the original one, yes, it was a home run.
Well, I'll go ahead and chime in on this one. Doctor Strange made number 7 on my list. And I'm like you. I loved the movie. Just absolutely loved the movie. Mm-hmm. The origin story, again, was really solid. Mm-hmm. I love the way Benedict Cumberbatch played the character. Because, I mean, you know, if you know anything about Stephen Strange before he became the master of the mystic arts, he was an asshole. Let's just call him what he was.
A doctor, a neurosurgeon that thought he knew everything. Yeah.
Arrogant beyond all imagination. And I love the vulnerability that Benedict Cumberbatch put into the character when he's trying to recover his hands, and everything that he was is now gone, and he does not know how to deal with being ordinary, if I may use that word. And it just, you know, the introduction of Kathmandu and the side characters, the Sorcerer Supreme, you had Wong, you had all these great side characters. And I'm like you, the second movie I could care less, but the way they did Doctor Strange, yeah, absolutely fantastic. Just everything about it. Mads Mikkelsen as the villain was just great.
Yep.
I mean, that, you know, the first time I watched Doctor Strange at the movie theater, I thought to myself, man, I am so glad I am sober and not on anything, because if I were on something and watching this movie, I probably would freak. It's just that trippy.
It is a trippy movie.
It's a very trippy movie, but yeah, just very, very well done. So I totally agree with you on that. But yeah, Doctor Strange definitely makes my list.
All right. We'll pick it back over to you for number 9.
The Dark Knight is one of those characters that has been with us really since the 1930s, probably. Mm-hmm. And there's been various actors who've played him. Adam West did it very campy, tongue-in-cheek in the 1960s. Michael Keaton did it in the 80s. Val Kilmer.
That was horrible.
Yeah, man.
Him and George Clooney.
See, Clooney to me was the bottom of the barrel. Yeah. I didn't mind Val Kilmer's portrayal. I didn't mind that at all. I thought he did fine with it. Then you had Christian Bale, and that makes my number 9 is Batman Begins, the first of the Christopher Nolan trilogy.
Yep.
Again, solid storytelling, great movie, and it wasn't the very early introduction of how Batman became who he was. Not so much, you know, the incident where his parents were killed, but what he was like afterwards. Mm-hmm. He leaves Gotham. He becomes a member of the League of Shadows. He meets Ra's al Ghul. Mm-hmm. He learns his training. And I love the way Christian Bale played it. Michael Caine as Alfred
Oh yeah.
Pennyworth
Oh yeah.
is extraordinary. I mean,
And
there have been a
Katie
lot of
Holmes as Rachel was great in
oh
that one
yeah,
too.
oh yeah, and watching Michael Caine and Christian Bale play off of each other was just great. I mean, there have been a lot of people who played the role of Alfred Pennyworth.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, for example, the television show Gotham. You
Mm-hmm.
have Sean Pertwee, who
Mm-hmm.
just an amazing job. There was a on Cinemax, I want to say there was just a whole show called Pennyworth, and I forget the actor's name who did it, but yeah, there's a lot of people that, but I love the way Michael Caine played it.
Mm-hmm.
You had Liam Neeson in the role of Ra's al Ghul, and just the storytelling is just fantastic. It's very earthy. It's not as dark as a Tim Burton Batman movie from like the late 80s or early 90s, but it's got that gritty earth sort of a feel to it, and just the way all the actors work off of each other, and they've got great material to work with because you got the origin story of Batman.
Yeah. And even the biggest complaint I hear about that movie, and I think it's a silly complaint, is the fact, where's the villain? Where's the supervillain? I'm like, you don't have to have a supervillain. To me, the best heroes, the best stories are people that don't necessarily have a supervillain. You had the Scarecrow, the Scarecrow character.
Murphy's character is the evil. Yeah, exactly, Lana.
And he doesn't have to be all super mad about it. But then you have Liam Neeson's character, who also turns out to be villain / anti-hero kind of thing. And then you just have basically Batman, Bruce Wayne fighting with himself.
Or you had the late Tom Wilkinson, who played, Falcone, the gangster.
Right.
I mean, and this is one of the criticisms that a lot of people, on social media have had of, superhero movies. There has to be this big, monstrous, super powerful villain. Well, no, you can have.
Those are fun.
They're fun. Yeah, they're fun. They can be. But, for purposes of storytelling, you don't necessarily have to have that. You just need to have a really well-constructed villain. The Kingpin doesn't necessarily have, superpowers, doesn't necessarily have a lot of gadgets and tricks, but he is an evil, man who is running a criminal organization. And he's a bad dude, and a very formidable bad dude, but he's not
all of the Batman villains.
Yeah.
Especially Joker and Riddler. Mm-hmm. There's nothing supernatural about them. They're just crazy. And they're good with gadgets. And basically that's what they are. They're evil geniuses, but they're not superheroes. They don't have superpowers. And it doesn't have to be this grand, powerful Thanos like aberration to be a good villain.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Absolutely. But yeah, to me, the Batman Begins is an absolutely great movie. I mean, Michael Keaton's portrayal showed you Batman after already established. Robert Pattinson, kind of a like adolescent. Bruce Wayne.
That's more of Batman going back to his being a film noir. He was more of a detective.
Yeah. But Batman Begins is a really good origin story movie to explain how it is that the Dark Knight came to be what he was. And again, in the hands of somebody like a Christopher Nolan, absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, it was good.
Absolutely.
That Nolan trilogy is great. And no one's going to, in the follow-up, no one's going to ever pee on the Joker.
No. Heath Ledger.
Heath Ledger as the Joker. It's not my favorite. There's one that's better in my opinion, but he's still great. He's still iconic.
Nicholson, yes. Okay, all right, I can understand that.
You spoiled me. It's going to be a little bit further up the list.
Okay, that's fine.
Also, honorable mention: Cesar Romero from the 1960s.
Yeah, and to be honest, a lot of those individuals who played those villains in the Batman television series don't get a lot of credit, but they
did.
should. Oh,
And
they did.
Julie
And
Newmar and 𝗟𝗏𝗃 Kitt as Catwoman. They did. Cesar Romero for the most part of my childhood until Michael Keaton's Batman and Jack Nicholson's Joker. He was my idea of Joker.
yeah. Or Burgess Meredith as the Penguin, or Frank Gorshin as the Riddler. I mean, these men and women had to take those characters from the comic books and translate them into something that you could sit down and watch in a half-an-hour television show.
Yeah.
And how they did it was pretty remarkable. You know, they took it and they made it their own. And I'm like you. I mean, when I watch, for example, Jack Nicholson's portrayal of the Joker, there's a little bit of Cesar Romero in there, and there's a little bit of Jack Nicholson.
Yeah.
You know, as far as the flamboyant paint and all that stuff, yeah, that's Cesar Romero. The sinisterness, the maniac tendency, that's all Nicholson. That's his contribution to
and that's why I give him so much props, because we hadn't had a new Joker since the 1960s.
No.
And Nicholson had to look at that with Tim Burton telling him, I'm going to do a gritty Batman, going back to the comics. Help me.
Yep.
And Jack Nicholson, being the character actor that he is, delved into that and gave us what he gave us. And it was a comedic but truly disturbed, evil individual.
Yeah. And the performance was so good. Heath Ledger went to Jack Nicholson and said, hey, I'm going to be, you know, in Nolan's trilogy, I'm going to be playing the Joker. Do you got any recommendations? You know, and they had, I mean, Nicholson, you know, they admit they had conversations with each other about how Heath Ledger ought to play the character.
Yeah.
But Heath Ledger was like, hey man, you've already done this. What do I do with this? What do I do with that? You know, just two actors bouncing off of each other, just different ideas.
Right. And if you look at Ledger's, he put his own twist on it, but there was still some Nicholson in there, and there was some Cesar Romero in there too.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Totally true. So, but yeah, the Batman Begins film, definitely. So with that, I will toss it back over to you, my dear.
For my number 9. My number 9, a lot of people are going to go, oh God. But from 2021, the Snyder Cut, the 4-hour cut of Justice League.
Oh, interesting. Interesting.
Now, the theatrical cut of Justice League, garbage, hot garbage. It makes no sense. There was too much cut out of it. But when they let Zack Snyder go back and put it in there, Zack Snyder is really in love with himself and really in love with his craft. So if you watch any of his things, and that horrible series he's been doing for Netflix, Rebel Moon, it's terrible. What they released is terrible. I watched it just to say that I watched it. But if they release a Snyder cut of that, I will watch it again, because the Snyder cut is what he intended it to be. And it could be 6 hours long, but it will hold your attention, and it's normally about 20 times better than the theatrical cut. And I know the reason why they didn't release Justice League, almost 4 hours into the theater. Nobody was sat through that. It might have even been over 4 hours. But if you watch it in its entirety, it's a great film. Great film.
I have seen bits and pieces of the Snyder Cut, and the one scene that I remember specifically is the scene where Wonder Woman goes to the Acropolis and finds this secret room with all the of these different things, and I thought, now if this had been in the other film, this would have been so much better. To me, I just wish, if the director's cut was 4 hours long, then do it like Harry Potter did it with the Deathly Hallows.
Justice League Part 1, Justice League Part 2.
Yeah, you would have made multi-millions of dollars, because everybody would have come back for Part 2. But no, they didn't.
But look, Gal Gadot is a great Wonder Woman.
Oh yeah.
I like Henry Cavill's Superman. I do. Not as good as Christopher Reeves, but I like it. And I think Ben Affleck plays a good Bruce Wayne. He does not play a good Batman. And there's a distinction there.
Okay, all right, I could see that. I can see that. I'll agree with you there.
And I really have no opinion on, of course, Aquaman, Jason Momoa was great, and I don't really have any opinion on the Flash one way or the other. He's not my cup of tea. But
Hmm.
overall, I think it was a great film, and it really brought me back to my old childhood memories of watching Super Friends, which was the
Mhm.
version of Justice
Yeah,
League that people in my generation grew up with.
yeah. Oh, absolutely. And yeah, I mean, talking about Henry Cavill, and I know other people have talked about this for years, but it's so true. Henry Cavill should be a much bigger movie star than what he is, because that boy could play literally. I mean, why he is not James Bond, I have no idea.
Politics.
No, I
Pol-
know.
He's a conservative dude. He's a conservative dude.
Well, that and the fact that his manager apparently is the ex-wife of The Rock, and every
Yeah.
time Dwayne Johnson goes for something that Henry Cavill would like to get, turns out, yeah,
Hmm.
Dwayne Johnson winds up getting it.
Hmm.
Henry, I love you, brother, but you might want to think about seriously changing out management talent.
Hmm.
But I mean, he ought to be playing Bond. He ought to be playing, Superman in every movie. I mean,
Yeah.
I love the way Henry Cavill does it. There's so many different things Henry Cavill ought to be cast in and just isn't, and it's a tragedy.
I fell in love with him in The Tutors.
I've got to
I
go
mean,
back and watch that. I
oh,
did
it's
not
just so
realize he was
good,
in that.
so good, so good.
Okay,
But
okay.
yeah, but I mean, imagine being an actual conservative British person. He doesn't get any love.
Gee, yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's one big reason right there. Yeah.
But
But
anyway, Justice League, Snyder cut, check it out. Don't bother with the theatrical cut. Just don't.
yeah, I mean the theatrical cut's not bad, but compared to the Snyder cut, I'm like you. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like
It's like it explained why these things were happening. They had to cut too much out of it. There was just
yeah,
so Wonder Woman's just a genius, and we hadn't even seen at the time. All we had seen her origin story, but it had nothing to do with that. So I'm like, where did
yeah,
she get all this information? And then in the Snyder
mm,
Cut, we find out she went to the Acropolis and she figured it out.
yep, absolutely, absolutely. But yeah, totally true. Well, my number eight in that same vein is Wonder Woman, the Gal Gadot film. Again, a great origin story movie. The
Mhm,
supporting cast is absolutely fantastic. You've got Connie Nielsen, you've got Robin Wright, you've got Chris Pine.
mhm.
Just an absolutely fabulous movie.
The way they did Steve Trevor in that movie was just excellent, and it was a
Oh yeah,
tearjerker, just a
oh
tearjerker.
yeah, it really is. So yeah, I mean, I again just everything about the Wonder Woman film, I loved. I mean,
Mhm,
and Wonder Woman's not necessarily one of my favorite superhero characters.
mhm.
Nothing against the fact that she's Wonder Woman. It's just, she doesn't necessarily, when I think superheroes and I think who are my favorites, well, okay, you got the Green Lantern. You've got, which no, the Green Lantern movie did not make my top 10. In case
Yeah,
anybody's wondering right now, I love Ryan Reynolds, even though he's a horse's ass. There is no way in the world that the Green Lantern movie got in my top 10 or even my top 20. Forget it.
I would have serious reservations about ever doing another top 10 with you if it had.
Oh, as well you should. As well you should. My questions about my good taste would be brought up immediately and appropriately so. Um, but but yeah, Wonder Woman is not necessarily one of my immediate favorite superhero characters, but I love the way that Patty Jenkins, the director of the film, did right as far as the origin story.
It was
You
great.
know,
It was
yeah,
great.
everything about it is set in World War One. It's just everything about it's just wonderfully done.
Yeah, it brought out the fact that she was fought Nazis. That was her original thing, is to
Yeah,
fight the Nazis.
yeah,
And
yeah,
she did.
yeah, and it's very well done. Gal Gadot is one of those great actresses that you know. eh, Hate to say it this way, but she's going to wind up being a one trick pony in
I'm
that.
afraid so.
Yeah, it's a shame. Because I think she's got more than that, but she's going to wind up being, the attractive, hot, girl boss character.
Mhm.
And, I think she can do more than that, but,
Because 1984 killed it. That was terrible. But
yeah.
but after that, I only think I've seen Gal Gadot cast in. She's supposedly playing the fairy godmother in that god awful, the evil witch in that god awful Disney Snow White remake. They keep pushing back because it's so terrible.
Oh yeah, yeah. Just absolutely awful, absolutely awful. But yeah, as far as the Wonder Woman movie itself, the first one, I'd recommend it to anybody.
Oh, me too.
Absolutely great.
Not so much
See that.
1984, but the first one, yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Even though we'll say Kristen Wiig is the cheetah, did a very good job. But that's just me.
I mean, Kristen Wiig's just Kristen Wiig,
Yeah, true, very true. So with that, I'll throw it to you for your number 8.
My number 8, I'm going into the world of the small screen, and that is Wonder Woman 1979 to 1982. Linda Carter will always be my Wonder Woman. And yes, it's campy, but that's why we love it. And with her, Lyle Wagner, and plus a myriad of so many guest stars, I couldn't name them.
Oh Lord,
fighting in the first season, fighting the Nazis.
Mm-hmm.
Then they slingshotted her into the 1980s for the last 3 seasons, and it was basically Wonder Woman because she's eternal, and Steve Trevor's grandson.
Yeah,
that's how they solved it, even though it was played by the same actor, Lyle Wagner, and so really it was just good, campy, yes, but great. It's iconic.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I'm sorry, Linda Wagner. Yeah, just absolutely gorgeous, and she was probably in her mid to latter 20s when she played that role, and just did it brilliantly.
Oh yeah,
absolutely brilliantly,
and just a sweetheart.
And now here's a trivia question for you. Remember that episode where she had the little sister or the cousin?
Deborah Winger as Wonder Girl.
Deborah Winger.
Gisela.
A very young Deborah Winger, by the way.
Like 18 or something.
Oh,
18
God,
or 19.
yeah. Oh, God, yeah. Absolutely just amazing. But, yeah, I mean, yeah. And Lyle Wagner is one of those actors that, he got stuck as the smooth talking, good looking guy role. And he rode that horse as far as it would take him, and he had no problems doing it. Didn't bother him.
Even in the Carol Burnett show, he was funny as all get out. But he played the smooth talking, handsome leading man, even in that.
Oh yeah, and you know what? Didn't bother him one bit. Nope. Kept him employed for years.
Oh yeah.
So
and then he retired. I believe if he's still alive, the last time I heard from him, he had bought a ranch and was living the high life in Montana or Wyoming. He just kind of lives the peaceful life.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, as far as the TV series is concerned, I thought it was wonderfully done.
Yeah.
Just, like you said, 1,000,001 guest stars, good old fashioned campy TV.
Mm-hmm. And you didn't necessarily, and again, it goes back to that. Of course, most of it was TV budget. You didn't have the big supervillain. You didn't see the cheetah in the Wonder Woman TV show. You saw the Nazis in season 1, and you saw evil scientists and everything else in seasons 2, 3, and 4. So it was just things that you could relate to, particularly the Cold War. Do you remember that episode where they had the nuclear? It wasn't a missile, but it was a nuclear ray gun, and Wonder Woman stood in front of it and absorbed all the radiation. Remember that?
I think I remember that one.
Iconic.
Oh yeah, I mean, there was one episode in the second season when it was like the 1970s or something, and they were trying to resurrect Hitler. They had figured out how to resurrect Hitler, and I'm like, oh no, this is a little over the top, but okay, it's Wonder Woman on television, so yeah, I expect this. So yeah, it was just very well done, just a whole lot of fun.
But I have to make fun of it. In my stand-up act, I used to make fun of, like, not make fun of it, but just point out things that we've all wondered about. Like, what happened to her purse when she spun? It would just disappear. And I'm like, did some poor person just standing over there get beamed with Wonder Woman's purse, as it flew out of her hand, felonious assault? And what happened to her clothes? She must have spent a fortune in clothes. And also, the men would shoot her. They would empty a gun and she would block all of the bullets. Then they would throw the gun at her.
No, I remember this now. I remember this now.
Really?
Yeah, and how bad a shot do you have to be that you can't get at least one bullet, just one bullet
past her wrist?
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, oh boy. It's like, jeez.
Anyway,
yeah.
Pass it back over to you.
All right. Well, since I listed off Doctor Strange as my number 7, I will move on to number 6. And we're going back to the big screen. Captain America, the First Avenger. Captain America is kind of the interesting superhero in that he was made into one. It's not like he was born with natural gifts. And I think that's part of what makes this movie and the story just so fun. Because, Steve Rogers was a 95-pound weakling. And the way, I mean, just the whole, even in like basic training, I love the way that Tommy Lee Jones put it. He's like, he looks at the doctor, Erskine, and says, "You brought a 95-pound asthmatic onto my military base." And I mean, there's nothing about Steve Rogers that makes you think he's going to be this amazing, charismatic leader for, the free world against what ultimately was not even the Nazis, Hydra. He was small. He was undersized, not an ounce of muscle on him whatsoever. Didn't meet the height requirements, didn't meet any requirement whatsoever to get him into the army. But, this is the guy who would stand up and fight the bully all day long.
Yeah.
And look at you and go, well, I can do this all day. And his best buddy, Bucky Barnes, is like, are you trying to get yourself killed? And keeps trying to get into the army. Can't do it. Can't pass the physical. And then finally, this professor is like, you're just the guy I'm looking for. And Tommy Lee Jones is like, why? Then he throws a fake grenade. Says, get out of the way. I did not know I sound like Tommy Lee Jones, but okay, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, and then you see, with the introduction of the super serum and everything else. But yeah, that whole movie, everything about it is just, I remember when the movie came out, it was the top box office draw that year. And Hollywood could not understand, why is it that this movie is doing so well? And some people just, it's just another Marvel movie. Of course it's going to do well. No, that wasn't it. First of all, it's good old-fashioned storytelling. Second of all, it's good old-fashioned Americana.
Yep.
Okay. America is not being portrayed as a bad nation. America is being portrayed as the good guys. And I think audiences flocked to that. Audiences were like, yeah, we love our country. We love the fact we're being portrayed as the good guys for a change. The supporting cast is absolutely amazing. Sebastian Stan is fantastic as Bucky Barnes. Stanley Tucci as Dr. Erskine. You had what's his name from Lord of the Rings?
Orlando Bloom?
No. The guy who plays Red Skull.
Oh. Not Sean Bean.
No. Cast of Captain America.
But a lot of the early Marvel movies, a lot of the earlier Marvel movies, the things that were released between 2010 and 2020, had a lot of patriot. Even Wonder Woman 2017 showed United States as the hero of World War II, which we were. Let's be honest.
Hugo Weaving. Weaving. I mean, and let's be honest. I'm sorry, Haley Atwell. Ugh.
Mhm.
Lord, now I got to go find a block of ice to sit on.
Oh, yeah.
Jeez.
I will not see the new Captain America
I won't do it.
just because he said that America is not something that Captain America makes you think of. I'm like, "Really?"
Yep.
That's the first thing. That was the first mistake, is making Falcon Captain
Yeah.
America. It should have been Bucky. They should have
Oh,
made that happen.
I agree. Well, but that's kind of just on a side note, that goes to what has happened to the Marvel franchise ever since they finished Endgame.
They're all
Kevin
trash.
Kevin Feige has not been able, for various reasons, to put together a comprehensive string of films, or even a film in and of itself, that makes sense. You know, from what I've heard, and again, take it for what it's worth, like a lot of people, I'm just, listening to various content creators, the talent that he had around him leading up to Endgame is gone. They've moved on to other projects, or they moved on to other studios, or what have you. And now Feige is expected to take this behemoth that in part he created, and keep, cranking out these multi-billion dollar franchises. And I'm sorry, that string of movies from Iron Man to Endgame is one of the most remarkable runs of films. Standalone films in most cases, all of them are standalone films. The most remarkable standalone run of films ever, to take every little bit and piece. And then finally, when you get to Endgame and Infinity War, it all comes together. And it's just like, there's no way you can do it. I mean, you might be able to do it twice, but you have to be a genius. And Feige's good, but he's not that good. He's proving it.
Exactly.
He's absolutely proving it. But as far as Captain America, the First Avenger, it's a great film.
Yeah, Jon Favreau's gone. They're all gone. All of it.
Yeah.
Jon Favreau's trying to save the Disney Star Wars, and he may single-handedly save it.
Good luck with that.
His shows are where he's the showrunner, is the only decent stuff coming out of that right now.
Oh yeah. But as far as Captain America is concerned, great film. I mean, like I said, as a standalone film in the Marvel series, if you just want a good movie on a Saturday night to pop popcorn to, sit down on your couch and just watch something with your friends and family, yeah, you could watch that one over and over and over again, and you'd never get tired of it. Mm-hmm. It's just good old-fashioned filmmaking, and more importantly, good old-fashioned Americana.
Yeah.
All of the
great ones were made between 2013 is where it started with Iron Man. 2013 to about 2016, 17.
Mm-hmm.
And after that, they got woke, they got stupid, they got dark.
Yep. And after Endgame, it just kind of fell off the cliff. Mm-hmm. It really did. I mean, you knew something was wrong when Black Widow came out. Not because of the way Scarlett Johansson played the character. That film should have been done before Endgame, before Infinity War.
Because she died. And spoilers, she died in Endgame. So we're going that far back in time. She should have had her origin story a long time ago.
It's like, why didn't you do this before you got to Infinity War? You should have. And that's the moment you realize there's something wrong here. Mm-hmm. Something is amiss. Because the film, Black Widow in and of itself isn't a bad film. It's just,
they were thinking they couldn't think of anything else to do.
Yeah. I mean, it's really kind of a shame. But no, the Captain America First Avenger film, absolutely, I'd recommend it to anybody. It's just that good. So with that, I'll throw it over to you for number 7.
My number 7, staying with television for another round here. This is a little known one, but 1987's Captain Power and the Soldiers of the Future. This was a first run syndicated live action show. It only ran for 1.5 seasons, but I still remember it. It was put out by Kenner, who was trying to market. It was during the 80s when all the big kid shows were linked to a toy line. Same with Captain Power. It was linked to laser tag, so you could interactively play the game while watching the show. If you had the equipment, you could shoot. There would be segments where you could shoot at the characters on television and register ahead. I never went so far as to get the toys, but the show itself was really good. It was kind of a mix between Terminator and any other space opera that you could throw in there for kids. It was basically the future where mankind, AI, had taken over, destroyed the world, and were trying to hunt down the last few remaining humans. And you had Captain Power and his soldiers that had the power suits, and each suit turned one person into a whole army or a whole battalion. So you had Captain Power, who was their leader, Captain Jonathan Powers. You had Tank, who had this berserker suit that made him into a legion of tanks. You know, not into actual like 100 tanks, but he had the power of 100 tanks. You had a pilot who was basically her own air force. You had Scout, who was espionage. You had all kinds of, he had there was 5 of them. They waged a war against the machines, and it was cutting edge CGI for 1987 and animation. Can't say enough about it. It's just got the nostalgia for me, and I still can hear him going, "Power on," and then they all jump into they're on this like power platform, and you hear him go, "Power on," and the lights light up, and they're all electromagnetically sealed into their suits, and I can still see that, and I still get chills when I think about it.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I will admit, this is one I am not familiar with, but I just happened to find my way over to imdb.com, and I'm looking at it going, I might have to go back and check this one out, because this isn't too bad.
It's early. It's Terminator-esque. It's very Terminator-esque, but it's for children. Well, I'm not going to say it's for children. It's for teens. It's for teenagers.
Okay.
Because it had some adult storylines to it. But
okay. Yeah, this one I will definitely go back and check out, because this takes me back to like late 80s TV. So it's like, all right.
And there was a comic book associated with it. But they left you on a cliffhanger. They leave you on this cliffhanger, and they just never come back to the show. And I was so pissed off.
Very, very good. Yeah, I will definitely go check this one out. Definitely.
Don't think it's not like what's that, Power Rangers? It's not campy like that. It's actually a pretty serious, dark tone to it.
Absolutely. So yeah, this one looks pretty good. Truly, truly does. Well, my number 5 is going to be a little bit different than some of the other movie recommendations that I've had. Spider-Man 2. Now, hang on. I got a reason for this.
Now, are you talking Marvel? Oh, no. Tobey Maguire's trilogy.
Tobey Maguire's trilogy. Tobey Maguire, Kirsten Dunst, James Franco before he lost his damn mind. That seems to be a constant theme. Hollywood actors and actresses losing their minds.
Who'd have thunk it?
Who'd have thunk it? No one. Ezra Miller? No, he's not weird. He's normal, you know. But Alfred Molina as Dr. Octopus. Now, most of the movies that I've got on my list are origin stories. This one I put on the list because, all right, the origin of Spider-Man is pretty well known, but I love the way this film explores something that I cannot really think of in any other, be it Saturday morning cartoon or any other film, and that is what happens when Spider-Man has a crisis of confidence. You know, his superpowers are coming and going. He wants to live a normal life of the college student and, get the girl and, be kind of cool and whatever else. But he's also this crime-fighting hero, which goes back to, his Uncle Ben's, motto, with great power comes great responsibility. And you think that he's got this thing figured out until along comes Dr. Octavius. And, and I love the way they did the origin of Doc Ock. Alfred Molina is just chewing up the scenery playing that character, and just does it so well. You know,
Is
for
that the
me,
one where is 2? I get them confused. Is 2 where he turns into Venom for a little while?
no, no,
Oh,
no,
that's
that's
3.
three. That's
Okay.
three.
All right.
Yeah, three is where Dr. Octavius is trying to create this fission machine to create unlimited world energy, and the experiment goes awry. The mechanical arms device that he's using, the controller chip goes out, and all of a sudden, it starts taking over who he is. I just thought it's very well done. Again, Alfred Molina is just chewing up the scenery, playing the character. All the supporting actors in the film are fantastic. J.K. Simmons as J. Jonah Jameson is just awesome. I'm
That laugh.
sorry.
Yeah, that laugh
There
and those
there is
faces.
there is nobody who has yet to play that character that I have been so impressed with as J.K. Simmons. But then again, that speaks to the talent of J.K. Simmons as an actor. That man can literally play anything. It's ridiculous.
Oz, his role in Oz was Schlesinger, Schlesinger, just absolutely iconic.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Of course, now he's the spokesman for Farmers Insurance or Allstate. No, Farmers.
Yep, absolutely. But yeah, it's a very well done movie, and it explores a lot of interesting and different themes, which to me is really, really interesting. It's just
Have
go
you
ahead.
ever with Jameson and with the editor in the Daily Planet in the original Superman with
Yeah.
Christopher Reeve?
Mm-hmm.
That's when being a journalist meant something.
Yeah.
That era where they were,
Yeah.
it's a highly respected career. And both of those guys as editors, even though they were both smart asses,
Oh yeah.
they wanted the truth and they wanted good, and they were willing to lay down their lives to protect Peter Parker and
Clark Kent.
Clark Kent.
Yeah. 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 Jackie Cooper played Perry White in the original Superman movie in '78.
Mm-hmm.
And you had J.K. Simmons playing J. Jonah Jameson
Mm-hmm.
at the Daily Bugle, and it's just
assholes, but they were good people.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what was Perry White's retort to Lois Lane? Look, he's cheap, he's fast, and he types 100 words a minute. Of course I'm going to hire the guy. Of course, what do you think I'm going to do? But yeah, it's just very,
and basically
very
when he told Zod to basically blow him.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
He wasn't telling him where Clark Kent was. Blow me.
Yeah, exactly.
And he did, but not the way he anticipated. It broke his arm, but
yeah, no kidding. Yeah, that whole the Richard Donner movies. I mean, one of them's going to make my list here in a little bit, but yeah, it's just very well done. But yeah, as far as Spider-Man 2, again, a lot of fun. The action sequences are fantastic. Watching James Franco's character of Harry Osborn, come to understand what happened between Spider-Man and his father, and yeah, it's just really well done film. So,
and I agree with you. I think it's a good movie, and everybody knows Spider-Man's origin story. It's the most well-known origin story of any superhero. It really is. Mm-hmm. Teenage kid, college-age kid, bit by a radioactive spider, yada yada yada. We all know it.
Yep. And if you don't, I don't know what to do for you. I'm just saying. So, but yeah, it's just a really, really great film. So I recommend it to anybody. So with that, I'll throw it over to you for number 6.
You may question my taste, but
it's
just it's iconic. 1980, Flash Gordon.
Oh, how could I have forgotten this film? Oh my God. Oh my, no, I am not questioning your taste. You have if you put that on your list, you have great taste, my dear. You truly, truly do. And frankly, I should have put that one on my list. I really should have. But
Because
oh god, yeah, it's a great film.
my history with Flash Gordon, because it goes all the way back to the old serials that used to run in movie theaters
Mm,
and
mm.
of course, in comic books and all of that. But when I was a wee little girl back in the late 70s, early 80s, there was one local station that used to play the old Flash Gordon serials from
Yes,
the movie theaters, and I used
yes,
to watch them. They were 10 minutes long, and they would string them together in like hour and a half
yep,
blocks,
yep.
and I would just sit there and just watch them. And I fell in love with the character of Flash Gordon. And then once I started being old enough to go to the video rental store, when I
Mhm.
saw there was a full-length movie in color, I was all over it. And the first time I watched it, I'm like, what was that? Because it's campy.
Oh yeah.
It's campy. But then I watched it again, and after that I fell in love with it.
I remember my local public television station would play those old Flash Gordon serials from the 30s.
Mhm.
And I'm like you, they were in black and white. The special effects, if you even want to call it that, the special effects were so, compared to today's standards, are so simple and so campy. But man, you just fell in love with those things. If they came on right now or on Netflix or wherever else, I'd watch them in a heartbeat.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'd absolutely do it. So
And,
yeah, I can understand why you're putting Flash Gordon on the list.
and
Absolutely.
Ming the Merciless has got to be one of the most terrifying villains in all of sci-fi,
True. I
because
can,
he
yeah.
is 100% a narcissist, 100% a psychopath, and
Mhm.
100% does not care about anyone, even his own daughter. He cares about himself and what he wants. And people like that are capable of anything, especially if they have an entire galactic empire behind them.
Yep. Oh, absolutely. And it's really interesting because I forget who was it the other night. Was I talking to a friend of mine, or I was just looking this up on my own? Max von Sydow, who plays Ming the Merciless in the Flash Gordon movie, is one of those gentlemen. You talk about a long and storied film career.
Mm-hmm.
That was Max von Sydow.
Mm-hmm.
There was nothing that man could not play.
Oh God, yeah. He's like he's like Alan Rickman or Ian McClellan. You could drop him in Sean Bean. You could drop him in any role, and he would just absolutely crush it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I'm trying to remember.
My favorite here now. I love Sam Harris, not Sam Harris.
Sam Jones.
Sam Jones is Flash. I loved Dale Arden. I loved Hans Zarkov, loved him, and that was Topal, who's a great Jewish, Polish Jewish actor. Was in Fiddler on a Roof. I think he was in Seven Brides for Seven Brothers.
Yeah.
Great actor, but my favorite, and I cannot remember his name in real life, but the Hawk King,
Brian Blessed
was my favorite character. Has always been my favorite character from that movie.
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah, it's just yeah.
Thanks, Darius. Thanks, buddy.
Oh yeah, glad to have you here, brother. Yeah. Oh gosh, yeah. Topal, Sam Jones, Melody Anderson, who plays Dale Arden. Yeah, it's just such a stinking good film. Oh my gosh.
And the action is good. The battle sequences are good. The music alone is
the soundtrack right by itself makes that movie so worth it.
Sometimes when I'm doing my exercises in the morning, I do them in front of the big television we have in our family room, and I'll be like doing my little workout, but I'll put on like clips and stuff to watch. And the Haltman taking over the the Mongol ship is one of my favorite clips that I'll put up there, just because of the soundtrack and the way that Haltman's just screaming and the laser fight and all that.
Oh yeah, I mean it just I would love to have been in the studio when the members of Queen were coming up with that soundtrack, because that Freddie Mercury and Brian May and all those guys were just having the time of their lives experimenting with music, trying to figure out what to do for the soundtrack.
Because that's what Dino De Laurentiis told them to do. He said, I'm making a sci-fi movie out of the old Flash Gordon serials. I'm just going to play the movie for you with dialogue, nothing else. And I just want you to write the music. And they literally wrote the music as they watched the movie. And that video, the only video for the theme song, that is literally just somebody turned on a camera and filmed them writing that song while watching the movie.
And the thing is, if you I have got a compilation on CD. Yes, I'm old enough to own CDs of Queen's Greatest Hits Volumes 1 and 2.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, the theme song for Flash Gordon is on Volume 1. It's that good. It stands the test of time. You know, it's just amazing piece of music.
I can still hear the
dun, 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 dun. Yep. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And you know, Freddie Mercury, is just as over the top and vampy as he was just having a field day singing that in the studio.
Like, a movie you made just for me.
Exactly. Here's a little side note. When I was watching an interview, and this was just before Queen went into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and it was after Freddie Mercury died, obviously. And someone asked the drummer, Roger Taylor, well, how do you think Freddie would react to the fact that he's going into the Hall of Fame? He said, well, if I know Freddie, he'd probably say, about bloody time you put us in. Because darling, I should have been inducted years ago. But yeah, that's Freddie Mercury was probably having the time of his life singing the theme song to the Flash Gordon movie.
Well, this is also a side note. Shaun of the Dead. I don't know if you've ever seen that. It's the British Simon Pegg. Well, you know that very famous scene where they're beating the zombie to death to Queen's "Nothing's Gonna Stop Me Now."
Oh,
they actually had already filmed that to a different song, but Simon Pegg wanted to use Nothing's Gonna Stop Me Now. But they couldn't get the rights. His film company was having a devil of a time with the copyright owner, the copyright company, getting the rights to that. And so somebody who knew Brian May said, just call Brian. And so he did. And he called him and he introduced himself. And he said, oh, yeah, use it. I don't bloody care. And he just called, he called the copyright company and says, we give them permission to use that song.
Oh, that is
and they refilmed the entire sequence set to the song they wanted it to be set to.
That is so stinking funny. Oh my God. Okay. Yeah, Flash Gordon. I am really surprised I didn't put it on my list. But yeah, your taste is in good hands, my dear. No one's going to question you on this. No, not by a long shot. Do not worry at all.
Then I'll kick it back to you for number 5.
Well, here's one that most people don't think of, but I tell you what, I loved it for a number of reasons. If for nothing else, the story, but also the cast. This is The Incredible Hulk. This is the one from 2008 with Ed Norton in the role of Bruce Banner.
I love that one.
Liv Tyler.
I prefer that one to any of the modern iterations.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Liv Tyler played the role of Betty Ross. Mm-hmm. William Hurt played her father, General Thunderbolt Ross. Mm-hmm. Tim Roth played the character Blukowski, and just very well done. Now, it's not an origin story movie, but you're seeing Bruce Banner trying to figure out how to live with this thing inside of him. He's on the run. He's in South America. And, Ross, being the determined general that he is, he's going to try and whatever means he's got to do to find this guy. And it's a very well done movie. All the actors and actresses play very well off of each other. I think that Edward Norton and Liv Tyler make a very compelling love interest angle to the film. Mm-hmm. And Tim Roth is amazing. Yeah. Tim Roth is absolutely amazing.
Tim Roth is another one that eats anything he does. He just eats it. He just eats the lens and anything.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, that Incredible Hulk is if you're going to, if the cinematic Incredible Hulk, that is the
Yeah.
superior film.
Oh, absolutely. And it's just, again, it's very well done. The filming is great. The production of it's great. I honestly, and I know what they were trying to do with the first movie, Hulk, with Eric Bana and all that, but it's not the same.
No.
This one gets closer to what Marvel was trying to do. Actually, if they had, for my part, the reason that I've heard that Ed Norton was not put in as Bruce Banner in the cinematic universe, people said he was just very hard to deal with. As an actor, and he'd want to change scenes, he'd want to change everything else, and just finally, like, we're getting this film done, but we're never going to bring this guy back again, which is kind of a shame. Because for my part, I thought that Ed Norton was great in the role.
Who's that little pansy that does it now?
Mark Ruffalo.
I can't stand him. His attitude on Twitter alone just makes me not like the modern Hulk.
Well, but see, this goes to something that content creators like yourself and others have been saying. If it were just an issue that you'd keep your opinion to yourself, you wouldn't be in nearly the position that you're in as far as public opinion about actors and actresses.
Yep.
You really wouldn't. I mean, and again, this is a discussion that you and I have had before, but it's like, there are actors in Hollywood back in the day who may have been lefties, but they kept their politics out of their work.
Yeah.
Or they didn't get as political public. I mean, again, they had their opinions about politics, but they weren't, on their soapbox.
To this day, nobody knows her politics. I mean, I can guess, but to these no one knows her politics. No one. And she has said that many times. She's there to entertain. She's not there to preach.
Yeah.
And she got into a little bit of a squabble with Lily Tomlin and Jane Fonda when they tried to drag her into something at some award show. And they said that backstage, she gave them what for. She said, no, I don't do that. I don't do that.
Yeah. And if they'd have just left it at that, they'd have been fine. But yeah, I mean, which, to me, I'm still waiting for the sequel to 9 to 5, which I tell you what, if those three women don't hurry up and get this thing done, But 9 to 5's
a classic. It's one of the first movies I remember seeing at the theater.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I also saw Blue Lagoon, which says a whole lot about what my parents thought about censorship. I saw the Blue Lagoon in the theater too.
Oh yeah. Hello, Gremlin.
Hey, Gremlin.
But yeah, The Incredible Hulk with Ed Norton. I recommend that movie to anybody. It's just that good.
Yeah.
Really is. So, and with that, I will turn it over to you for number 5.
Number 5, this is also staying with going back to the small screen. Buck Rogers, 1979 to 1982. Gil Gerard, Aaron Gray. Classic. Don't get much better than that. Again, another holdover from the old serials that we grew up on watching reruns of the movie Serial. And when they decided to do a modern take on it, I was all in.
Yeah. Yeah. Aaron Gray as Colonel Wilma Deering was one of my crushes as a little boy growing up because she was hot.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just, again, to me, this is Buck Rogers. And again, the 1930s serials, brought into the modern age. And I mean, let's see. Tim O'Connor played the role of Dr. Elias Hewer. You had Gil Gerard as Buck Rogers. The Draconians.
Yep.
I'm trying to. Yeah, the Hawk. Yeah, everything about that film, that series was so well done.
And people would get mad when they started out. They were on Third Earth, and then they in the second and the third season they were in the spaceship. I liked both versions. I loved Twinkie. Twinkie was one of my favorite. And then there was Dr. Theophilus. Loved him. So yeah, it was just great.
And interesting little side note, do you know who voiced the character of Twinkie?
I should know. But who?
The legendary Mel Blanc.
Yeah, yeah.
Of Bugs Bunny, I mean, so many different characters that Mel Blanc did over the years. And yeah, he voiced the role of Twinkie.
Mhm.
And there's this one scene where they're flying around in their fighter ships, and Twinkie said, "Bitty bitty bitty, eat lead, sucker," and snaps out some enemy ship. And Dr. Theophilus is right on, lead? What lead? Twinkie, what are you talking about? It's just classically funny. Oh yeah, and talk about guest starring appearances. Jack Palance was in it.
Mhm.
Gary Coleman,
Yeah.
among other people who guest starred in that television series. But
The
yeah,
the 2-episode arc where Buck Rogers met Hawk
yeah, very
and his
well done.
and Hawk's wife was killed
Uh-huh.
because
Yeah.
of a mistake that Buck Rogers did,
Yep. Yep.
and just it tugged at the heartstrings. I mean, that was writing.
Yeah. Well, and again, great writing as you might expect.
Mm.
But yeah, I absolutely see exactly where you're going. But yeah, it's a great, and again, and here's an interesting little side note of trivia. There was one episode, or it is a two-parter, where they needed a whole bunch of fighter pilots and they were short-handed.
Mhm.
Well, there was this one pilot who came out of retirement. Well, interestingly enough, it was the man, and I forget what the actor's name was, who played the original Buck Rogers in the 1930s serials.
Yep, I remember that.
And I thought that was a very nice touch.
Yeah.
Very classy way that they did that kind of thing. So
I totally agree with you. They just knew how to do. And going back to Captain, I mean, Buck Rogers was first, but Buck Rogers and Captain Power, both of
mhm,
them were syndicated shows. They didn't really
mhm,
have a home network.
right.
They were first run syndication. And so
Yeah.
local stations could pick them up. And people think that Gene Roddenberry created that medium with Star Trek The Next Generation. He did not. That had been going
Mhm.
on for quite a while.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Um, but yeah, I mean, just yeah, it's Buck Rogers is definitely on the list of sci-fi superhero movies that yeah, absolutely. I can totally understand why you would put that one on the list. Definitely a good one.
All right. Well, over
So,
to you. Over to you for number 4.
well, on my list, and I got to put this one in. If I don't, I'm an idiot. Iron Man from 2008.
Mhm.
If ever there was a man born to play a certain role, I'm sorry. Robert Downey Jr. was made to play the role of Tony Stark / Iron Man.
And I'm going to
Um,
stop you right there and say that is also my number 4. So we had very similar
okay.
taste at the same number. So we'll just
Okay.
leave it at that.
Okay. Yeah. At this point in Robert Downey Jr.'s career, he had a little bit of a bounce back with the television series Ally McBeal, where
Mhm.
he was guest starring for one season. He had done Zodiac. He'd done Kiss Kiss Bang Bang.
Mhm.
And Hollywood was like, well, okay, maybe, they were like, yeah, okay, we're getting you for cheap because we know
Mhm.
you're coming out of rehab. You're keeping yourself straight. But this is the one that catapulted him back to stardom.
This made him a
And
superstar. He went from C list to A list.
and it also made him incredibly rich because he negotiated a deal that basically said that he would get X amount of percentage, and that man has got more money for the rest of his life than he'll ever have to deal with.
Oh yeah, they got him
But
for a cheap guarantee, but then they signed away like 2% of the net profits, or it was
yeah,
something to that effect. And
yeah,
let's just say he doesn't ever have to worry. And plus, he got his big payouts for the next few movies too.
yeah. But he play. But I mean, as far as the character, he plays that arrogant genius so well
Mhm.
that everything is rolling along in his life, and he has not a care in the world until his heart is literally hanging by a thread. And were it not for the kind ministrations of a doctor who saved his life by the most unconventional of methods.
By putting a
And then,
magnet in his heart. Yeah.
yeah, and putting a magnet in his heart. And then, Tony Stark being the genius that he is, the guy that likes to tinker, he plays around with it. And then all of a sudden he creates something, amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And the supporting cast is great.
Crazy or not, Gwyneth Paltrow is Pepper Potts. She
Yeah.
did a tremendous job with that role.
I agree. Having Obadiah Stane be played by
Bridges.
By Jeff Bridges, excuse me.
Jeff Bridges. Sorry.
Yeah. By Jeff Bridges is great. He plays that with just a perfect mixture of smooth, suave businessman sophistication and just ruthless evil.
What was Jon Favreau in the first one, or did he come in?
Yeah, he played the role of Happy.
Right,
and directed it. By the way, did direct the film, and there's Terrence Howard in the role of Rhodey, which is also great. Which I really wish that he and Downey Jr. could have worked it out, because frankly, from my perspective, Terrence Howard played a better Colonel Rhodes than did Don Cheadle. I'm sorry, nothing against Don Cheadle as an actor. I like him, but I thought Terrence Howard was much better.
Oh, me too.
But yeah, I would recommend Iron Man to anybody. And interestingly, that movie kicks off a string of 21 films that runs over the course of basically 12 years. That it's just like, I said it earlier, it's one of the most amazing run of films you'll ever have. It really is.
And tell me, were you not satisfied with the way Endgame ended? I mean, yeah, it was sad, but it was the perfect bookend.
Yeah.
To that. And I was so afraid they were going to pull some, keep saying this, I'm so afraid they were going to pull some woke crap and have Captain Marvel be the heroine, or Black Panther, or just, just for the sake of it being diversity. And I know that sounds awful to say, but Iron Man was the Marvel universe. He started it. He was the linchpin, and to have Iron Man be the hero and the one to end it was the most satisfying thing ever.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's just everything about from Iron Man to Endgame just bookended perfectly, because, Tony Stark did not want to be a hero. He wanted to be a playboy who made his gadgets and his inventions, and his company made money, and he's, living the high roller lifestyle, and winds up in the end being the hero that everybody loves. Like a lot of the characters that Stan Lee wrote over the years, they didn't start out trying to be the hero. They just wound up being that, just A, by being there, and B, by extraordinary circumstance.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what makes me mad about some of the little minor characters they tried to shove up our nose as if they were this big, great thing. No one knew who Captain Marvel was. That was literally shoved up everybody. I mean, Black Panther, as much as I like that movie and as much as I have read those comics and I really appreciate him as a character, he wasn't that big of a deal.
No.
And I could point out Falcon. I could point out the WandaVision, Wanda, all of them. The Red Witch, they weren't that big of a character. But they made them out to be this grandiose thing, and it just always pissed me off. I'm like, no, the Avengers was Iron Man, Captain America, and Thor. That's your core three. That's all you really need. And the Hulk.
Exactly. But yeah, Iron Man, it's going to be one of those movies that stands the test of time.
Exactly.
And if anybody tries to remake that film, oh God, the howls of protest that will go up will be extraordinary.
Right.
So with that, I will throw it over to you for your next pick.
Okay. My number 3, we've already discussed it somewhat. And there's also an honorable mention in here, but my number 3 is Batman 1989, with an honorable mention for the 1960s television show. And again, for all the same reasons we've already discussed, it was not a Batman origin story. Again, like Spider-Man. Spider-Man is the Marvel character that everybody knows their backstory. Batman is the DC character that everybody knows their backstory. So it was not a backstory, but it was great character work. Michael Keaton did a great job playing Batman. Kim Basinger was very, very memorable as Vicky. You had God, I can't remember his name. The one that played the other reporter. Oh my God, I can see him. But anyway, you had Pat Hingle as Commissioner Gordon. You had, of course, Jack Nicholson as the Joker and Jack Palance as the mob boss, which was great. And Jerry Hall as the model / lover that started all the trouble. So Jerry Hall's pretty hot too.
Yeah. Yeah.
So just a great dark movie. It was my first introduction to the gritty Batman. My only experience had been the 1960s TV show. So to see a dark, edgy, gritty, not always a happy ending Batman was a new experience. And so I really enjoyed it.
No, I totally agree. Up to that point, with the exception of the TV series, nobody had tried to take Batman and put it on film.
No.
And actually the summer that came out was, to me, one of those summers that was just golden age of movies. You had Batman, you had Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. You had a slew of movies in that. I think it was like, it would have been the summer 89. Yeah, summer 89. It was remarkable.
You had Pretty Woman, you had Steel Magnolias, War of the Roses. You had so many iconic movies of so many genres that all hit that one summer.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But Batman was amazing because, I mean, for people who are fans of the comic books, and there's a lot of people who are, Batman is basically a detective series that certain things have grown up around it. But the way that Tim Burton tried to do it is a very dark, gritty, kind of a film noir sort of experience. And just, I love the backgrounds. I love the scenery. I loved everything about it.
And to me, Tim Burton set the standard for what we look at Gotham City as.
Yes.
Tim Burton is over the top with all of his characters, the color, just being outrageous. And he did a great Gotham City.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Even Nolan modeled his Gotham City after Tim Burton's. It's just all over it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and again, Michael Keaton for me was the gold standard about what Batman should be. He really was. I love the way that Keaton played it. This quirky, eccentric millionaire, and you can't quite figure out the why. Why is he this way? And
what's his motivation? He's not really likable. He's not a likable dude.
No, he's not. No, he's not.
Kind of cold. You'd be like, you'd have one conversation with him and be like, nah.
Yeah, cold, distant. Yeah. You can't figure him out, and then you you piece it together, and you're like, oh, this is why this guy is the way he is.
And Vicky Vale and Alex Knox, that's the guy's name. Just great.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the soundtrack,
by Prince.
Say No More.
Oh yeah, much like Queen was for Flash Gordon, Prince did that soundtrack, right? There's one song that came off there, Arms of Orion, which was a duet with Sheena Easton. Very pretty love song.
Yep.
Very, very pretty love song. But that whole soundtrack is just amazing.
Yeah, I've got it on my playlist. I had the cassette. Yes, I'm old enough to have cassette. I think I had it on LP. And then later on, I had it on CD. But yeah, Arms of Orion. Of course, Bat Dance was the breakout.
Yep.
But there was another one called Electric Chair, which was the Joker's theme song that I just absolutely loved.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And again, if you want proof of how brilliant Prince was as a performer, as an artist, just listen to the Batman soundtrack. That's really all you need.
Yep.
It's hands down one of his best work.
Yep.
So. Well, for me, number 2 on the list, we're going to go back in time a little bit. 1978, Superman the movie. Christopher Reeve, the late Christopher Reeve, the late Margot Kidder, Gene Hackman, who played the definitive Lex Luthor. You had Ned Beatty in a supporting role. You had Jackie Cooper in a supporting role. And the supporting, Marlon Brando, Glenn Ford. You had a supporting cast that was just amazing. This, to me, I'm sorry. I know the special effects today are so much better, and I know we can use CGI, and I know we can do everything else, but I'm sorry. Superman, the movie, 1978, is the definitive Superman movie. Period. End of argument. I don't care what anybody says. It's just that good.
I agree with you, and it's also my number 2, but I also connected Superman 2 with it as well, because to me, they come as a set. They're that good.
They should. Richard Donner is the late Richard Donner is the director on this film, and he does a wonderful job with it. The origins on Krypton all the way through to, a moral dilemma that Superman has to resolve in order to save Lois Lane. Do I violate the laws of nature and time? Do I interfere in the affairs of man in a direct way? So, it's just a great film, just genuinely great film. So, and Marlon Brando is not on screen very long, but does a wonderful job. He is don't get me wrong. I love, why am I blanking on his name? Gladiator. I love Russell Crowe. I love Russell Crowe, but I'm sorry. It's Brando.
Brando is Jal-El for sure.
Yeah. So that's my number 2.
Yeah. And like I said, that's my number 2. 1 and 2 to me come as a set, so I threw it in there too, because it's such a seamless transition between 1 and 2. It picks up the next day after Superman 1 ends, Superman 2 begins. Mm-hmm. In fact, you see the villains from Superman 2 in the first few minutes of Superman 1. The Kryptonians, when they banish them.
Yep. Yeah, and that's done so well. Michael Shannon played Zod in Man of Steel, which, by the way, I love Man of Steel. Don't get me wrong. I think it's a great film. But again, as far as like the origin story movie, Superman, the movie, 1978. And like Tracy said, 1 and 2 goes. Actually, they were filmed on or about the same time.
It might have been one continuous filming, like Lord of the Rings, which would make sense. And Lana was Clark Kent's girlfriend back in Smallville.
So absolutely great film. Absolutely great.
All right. So my number 1.
Go for it.
Is to me the most perfect story arc in television history. It is a perfect tragedy. It is the struggle of the everyman. It is relatable, and to me is the best portrayal of a superhero ever. And that is Bill Bixby's The Incredible Hulk, 1979 to 1982. Why, Tracy? It's cheesy. Well, first of all, you had Bill Bixby, who's one of the greatest actors that have ever lived. I rank him right up there with Brando and Michael Landon for being just a great actor. You had Lou Ferrigno playing a live-action Hulk. That's number 2. And number 3, the story was so relatable. He wasn't a superhero. He was a tragic figure, because that man, even though he was trying to cure what was wrong with him, he never got a moment's peace. Yeah. And he would always put others above himself, and then it eventually got him killed. Yeah. And Joe Rogan said it best when he was talking about it with Stan Lee. Stan Lee said that they made a lot of changes to the comic book for that television show, and he agreed with every one of their changes. In fact, he said if he could have gone back and retconned what he had already wrote, in the comic books, he would have done exactly what the showrunners of that show did, because they made the Incredible Hulk 10 times better than he could have. And that's said a
Wow.
lot for Stan Lee to say that.
Yeah, that really does. I agree with you completely.
And what were some of the changes? They changed his name. It was not Bruce Banner. It was David Bruce Banner. So the showrunner did not want the rhyming name. He said Bruce Banner was so stereotypical of comic books, so he wanted to break it up. So David Banner. In the comic, the Hulk is created because he's this big government scientist that is working on the nuclear bomb project, the Manhattan Project, and he tries to save a young soldier that has wandered into the pruning area and gets a dose of radiation, therefore making him the Hulk. That is the original origin story of the Incredible Hulk from the comic book. In the show, you have David Banner, who is a doctor, an MD, and a scientist. He and his wife are driving late one night, and they get into a car accident. And he's able to get out of the car, but his wife is trapped in the car, and it's on fire. And he tries to lift the car off of her and can't, and she dies. And so he is obsessed with stories of people that's adrenaline when it kicks in. And some people can lift cars off of people and some people can't. He wants to know what was wrong with him that he couldn't lift the car off his wife. And he ends up hooking up with another med student that he knew in medical school, and they start research. He's obsessed with that. And he comes to the conclusion that it was something about the placement of the lightning and gamma radiation. And so he literally does it to himself on purpose to see what will happen. He's that obsessed with it. And then he just turns into the Hulk now every time he gets upset. And then he's pursued by a reporter, Mr. McGee, who, you got to hate Mr. McGee because he's harassing the hero. But Mr. McGee's not a bad person. He wants the truth. He knows this green-skinned monster is running around. He wants to know the truth. And so he's an honest journalist, even though he goes about it from a truly wrong thing. And everybody that David Banner becomes friends with or loves meets tragedy because of David Banner. And it's just the most perfect Shakespearean tragedy ever put on television.
Jack McGee, the reporter, is played by a great character actor named Jack Colvin.
Yep.
Absolutely. And in the TV series, he's fantastic. Absolutely fantastic.
And he's not a bad dude. He's just an honest journalist that wants the story. He thinks this David Banner faked his own death so people wouldn't look for him.
Yep.
And so, but Jack McGee thinks this green-skinned monster is the one that killed David Banner, and he wants to capture the green-skinned monster.
Yeah. And even though his fellow journalists think he's absolutely nuts for chasing this story for as long as he has.
Right. And it's just one tragedy after another. You remember that theme song at the end, The Lonely Man?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Just that.
Yep.
And Joe Rogan, when he was talking to, when he was talking about it to Stan Lee, he says it's just every episode when I was watching that as a kid, I just thought, poor bastard. That was his whole thing.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't disagree with you at all. I mean, Bill Bixby is one of those actors that did not get nearly the credit he deserved. Great actor and great director, by the way. Yeah. Had he lived, beyond the years that he did, I think he would have gotten more credit and more recognition for his directing work. He died
rather young. He died in his, 50s?
Hang on, I'll tell you.
Early 60s?
He died at the age of 59.
Yeah, I knew he was rather young.
Very young. Yeah, very young. Matter of fact, I want to say it was cancer, but give me a second here. Because I just happened to be on his Wikipedia page. Prostate cancer.
Yeah.
Yep, I was right. Yeah, he died very, very young. And, well, relatively young anyway. But yeah, Bixby's one of those guys. Again, great. I mean, The Courtship of Eddie's Father, The Incredible Hulk, his directing work. He was absolutely great. Totally great. Yeah. My favorite Martian. Yeah. I mean, he had series in the 50s, the 60s, the 70s. Great. Yeah, just a great actor.
And he
You
took
know,
over directing on the Incredible Hulk in the later seasons.
yeah.
And I think he directed all the movies that came after.
Yep. Oh yeah. Totally. Yeah, just totally great.
And Lou Ferrigno was the Hulk. You don't get much
Yeah.
better than that.
No, exactly. Exactly. So but yeah, I agree with you. I'd recommend that TV series to anybody. Totally would. You know. Well, my number one might surprise people, but I love the way this film was done. Thor. The first Thor movie. Absolutely Chris Hemsworth, Tom Hiddleston, Anthony Hopkins, Rene Russo. It is just, and I think what makes me put this up the top of the list, it's not just an origin story movie, but it's how it's handled.
Mm-hmm.
Interestingly enough, Kenneth Branagh, the legendary British actor, directed this film. And you can tell, well, the first 2 or 3 Marvel movies weren't done by Disney Marvel. They were done, I want to say by Paramount.
Mm-hmm.
And you could tell Disney did not have their hooks into this franchise yet, because the way Kenneth Branagh handled Thor, the origin story movie, is just very classy. He tried very much to stay in line with the storytelling from the comic books. The characters were done very seriously. You definitely did not have the Taika Waititi Thor Ragnarok or Thor Love and Thunder movies, which just made Thor a joke, a running joke machine. Yes, there's humor in the original Thor movie, but Kenneth Branagh handles that movie and the material in such a good, classy sort of way. And, you know, the dynamics between Loki and Thor, and, you know, between Loki, Thor, and Odin, played by Sir Anthony Hopkins. Again, this is just good old-fashioned storytelling. Yeah, they had a lot of money and a lot of special effects and a lot of everything else. Natalie Portman is great in it. Stellan Skarsgård is great in it. Kat Dennings is great in it for comedy relief and eye candy. But yeah, I put Thor at the top of my list. It's very well done storytelling.
A lot of the early Marvel movies, like Thor, like the original, as you've already said, Captain America and Iron Man, all 3 of the original Avenger movies, origin movies, Wonder Woman's DC, but all of them made our list because they're good movies. It was a different sort of person handling them before they got into the broad commercialization, the wokeness, all the stuff that killed them later on.
Yep. No, absolutely. I would recommend Thor to anybody. And again, just as a standalone movie, no connection to a whole string of film. But yeah, Thor, yeah, go watch it. It's just that well done. It really is.
I agree.
So that's the totality of my list.
That was it for me.
Okay. All right. So what do you got cooking in the near future?
I'm actually working on still going to get that dark web Silk Road video recut out soon. I'm trying to make sure all the objectionable parts that they flagged me for the first time are out of it, so I'm having to go through it pretty carefully.
Okay.
But one thing that I am working on is I'm going to do a series on animated shows or animated movies that gave Gen X, our generation, nightmares. You're probably you probably remember the cartoons we were shown that we probably should not have been shown because our parents didn't bother to read that they were actually made for adult audiences.
Yeah.
Like Animal Farm, like Watership Downs, like even The Secret of NIMH was a little disturbing. Plague Dogs, The Last Unicorn. A lot of those were really more of adult-oriented animation that became pretty widespread among young kids in our generation.
Oh, yeah.
And they were quite disturbing. So I'm
Yeah.
going to do a kind of a series and a review of all those movies, with the first one being the Animal Farm animated movie from 1954, which was
Okay.
actually a CIA psyop.
Oh God.
No, I'm serious.
No, no, I know. I'm saying, oh God, because it's like, can the CIA not leave anything alone for God's sake?
Because okay, it was written in the 1940s by or actually the 1930s by Orwell, who, believe it or not, was a socialist himself,
Mm-hmm.
and he wrote it kind of lambasting Stalin and what happened in Russia, that you didn't do it right. That was the whole critique of the movie. But it does end up being just more of a critique of communism in general. And the CIA knew that, even though he was a socialist, telling socialists what they did wrong is essentially what Orwell was doing. But of course, it can also be spun the other way. And that's what the CIA did. They paid, I forget how many $100,000 to the British filmmakers that were making it to
Mm-hmm.
make it and distribute it in the United States, because they felt it was the perfect way to make communism look scary to young American children.
Okay.
And
Okay.
then, but what people won't tell you is that Orwell, you can see it 1984. That was another one that we probably shouldn't have seen animated. That he became a little more free market oriented. He never quite made the jump to capitalist, but he certainly turned his back on traditional Karl Marx communism before it was over.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah, that'd be a very interesting series to watch. Very interesting indeed. So, yeah, that sounds good. For my part, I'm going to try and crank out some more videos this week. I'm traveling this weekend, so Front Porch Brunch is again delayed. Apologies. But my reasons for travel seem more than worth it. And not seem more than worth it. What am I saying? They are more than worth it. Forgive me, lady, if you happen to hear that comment. But yeah, looking forward to putting out some more videos. I'm going to try and get some live streams set up for next week with some guests. And yeah, just going to keep on rocking and rolling, doing my thing.
Yep. Well, awesome. Well, thank you for a great night. Thank you, everybody. We went a little long today, so I'm going to go ahead and bring this into the station. But check out Brian over on X and here on YouTube and on Rumble, and check out me here on YouTube and on X. And until next time, we are out.